Have you ever dressed up for something that wasn't supposed to be a celebration, yet somehow turned into one? Because that's exactly what I did at 62. I threw myself a divorce party, not to make a scene, not to stick it to anyone, but to honor the quiet, powerful moment when I decided I was done shrinking myself. And the outfit I wore that night, it wasn't just about looking good, it was about feeling free for the first time in years. But before I tell you exactly what I wore, let me ask you something deeply personal. If you were given a second chance at life, right now at your age, what would you wear to step into it? You see, style isn't just about clothes. At our age, it becomes a reflection of who we are becoming. It tells the world, I'm still here and I matter. So in today's video, I'm sharing something intimate, the full story of what I wore to my divorce party at 62, and why every detail meant something more. If you're a woman over 55, navigating life after a major change, whether it's divorce, retirement, empty nesting, or simply a season of rediscovery, this video is for you. We'll talk about the power of color, the symbolism in a haircut, the art of dressing when no one's opinion matters but your own. And along the way, you'll pick up real practical style tips tailored for women over 60, including how to choose elegant dresses that flatter mature curves, why a fresh hairstyle can completely shift your energy, how the right accessories can do more than elevate your look. They can awaken a new version of you. These aren't just fashion tips, they're part of a larger transformation, one where you reclaim your body, your story, your confidence. Because divorce recovery over 60 isn't just about moving on, it's about rising up. So, whether you're here for inspiration, healing, or simply to find your next fabulous outfit, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may just feel a little braver to rewrite your own style story. Let's start from the beginning. Why did I throw a divorce party at 62, and what made me finally say, this moment deserves a dress? It wasn't planned. There was no Pinterest board, no fancy invitations, no dramatic announcement. Just me, 62 years old, standing in front of my closet one quiet afternoon and realizing that this was more than the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of me. I'd spent over 3 decades married, 30 years of shared holidays, joint decisions, polite compromises, and quiet sacrifices. And when it ended, there was grief, yes. But underneath that grief, something else stirred, relief. Then, space. Space to breathe. Space to ask, what do I actually want? I didn't want bitterness. I didn't want a lawyer's version of closure. I wanted a ceremony, a celebration, not of what was lost, but of who I had become in the process. That's how the idea of a divorce party came to life, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of reclamation. It wasn't about pretending I wasn't hurt. It was about saying, I made it through, and I still have a whole life ahead of me. And I just knew, that I couldn't show up to that moment in anything ordinary. I needed to wear something that matched the woman I had grown into, something elegant, bold, and undeniably me. Because that night, I wasn't dressing for anyone's approval. I was dressing for the version of myself that had been waiting in the wings, patient and quiet, for far too long. And when I finally zipped up the dress I chose, looked at my reflection, and smiled, that's when I knew I wasn't mourning anymore. I was marking a rebirth. But what does a woman wear to her own renaissance? To a celebration not of youth, but of self-respect, healing, and power? Well, let me show you. Next, I'll take you inside the exact outfit I chose, what it looked like, how it made me feel, and why it was the most meaningful dress I've ever worn. I didn't go shopping for this dress the way I used to. In my younger years, I would have picked something safe, something black, something slimming, something that said, don't look too closely. But this time I wanted to be seen. I walked into a boutique I'd never stepped foot in before, one with velvet chairs, soft jazz playing in the background, and dresses that whispered possibility instead of rules. And there it was, a deep, elegant emerald green dress with a draped neckline, three-quarter sleeves, and the softest satin fabric I'd ever touched. It hugged my body in the right places and skimmed gently over the rest. It didn't try to hide me, it highlighted me with grace. The color struck me first. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't quiet either. It had depth. It had mystery. It reminded me of the woman I was becoming, strong, grounded, and a little unexpected. I slipped it on in the dressing room, and when I turned toward the mirror, something happened. I stood taller. My shoulders pulled back, my lips curled into a smile I hadn't seen in years. I didn't just look good, I looked alive. That's the power of the right dress. Not because it's trendy or expensive, but because it reflects something inside of you that's been waiting to rise. This wasn't about looking younger. It was about looking true. And for any woman watching, especially those over 60, let me tell you, there are still clothes out there that will make you feel beautiful, desirable, and confident. You just have to give yourself permission to choose them. Because elegant dresses for older women don't have to be dull or matronly. They can be sensual, bold, and dignified all at once. And yes, I wore heels that night. Because this moment deserved to be elevated, quite literally. But of course, no outfit is complete without the hair. And what I did to my hair that week completely transformed how I felt. Next, I'll tell you exactly why I cut off 20 centimeters and how that small act of scissors became a turning point in my healing journey. They say a woman who cuts her hair is about to change her life. I didn't fully believe that until I sat in that salon chair, staring at my tired reflection, and whispered to the stylist, "Take it all off." Now, to be clear, I wasn't going for something radical. I didn't shave my head or dye it fire red. But I did cut nearly 8 inches off, 8 inches of history, 8 inches of habit, 8 inches of playing it safe. For years, I'd kept my hair long because I thought that's what made me feminine. But lately, it had become more of a curtain than a crown, something I hid behind. So I asked for something fresh, something structured but soft, something that would frame my face, not weigh it down. And what I got was a chin-length textured bob with soft layers that moved when I moved. I expected to feel nervous. Instead, I felt lighter, not just physically, but emotionally, like I'd let go of something I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I didn't see someone who had just gone through a divorce. I saw someone starting over. Even the gray in my hair seemed to shine differently. Instead of covering it up, I enhanced it with a cool toned gloss that gave my strands a luminous finish. Because, let's be honest, gray hair over 60 isn't something to hide. When treated well, it becomes a signature. My stylist smiled and said, "You look 10 years younger." But I didn't care about looking younger. I cared about looking awake. And that's what the right haircut can do. It doesn't change who you are. It reveals who's been there all along. So with my new hair and my emerald dress, I was almost ready. Almost. Because before I stepped out that night, I carefully chose the accessories that would complete the look, and each one held its own story. Next, let me show you the small details: shoes, earrings, scent, that made the biggest impact on how I carried myself that night. Accessories are never just accessories, they're punctuation marks, they're whispers of your personality, especially when you're no longer dressing for anyone but yourself. That night, I didn't throw on just any pair of heels. I wore nude block heel sandals with a soft suede finish, comfortable, elegant, and powerful in their simplicity. I'd spent years compromising comfort for style or style for comfort. That night, I refused to choose. I wanted both. These shoes didn't scream for attention. They supported me, literally and figuratively, as I stepped into a new chapter. Next came the earrings. I opened the velvet box and saw them, vintage-inspired gold hoops with tiny pearl accents, a gift from my mother, once tucked away for special occasions. I realized, if this wasn't a special occasion, what was? So I wore them, not to impress anyone, but to honor the women who came before me, the women who stayed silent, the women who never got to throw a party like this. Around my wrist, I added a single cuff bracelet, modern, sculptural, clean, a reminder that strength can be soft and still unshakable. And finally, the last detail before walking out the door was my fragrance. I reached for a bottle I hadn't touched in years, a deep, musky floral with sandalwood and a hint of bergamot. They say scent is the strongest memory trigger. I wanted everyone in that room to remember how I made them feel that night. Elegant, grounded, untouchable. If you're watching this wondering, does it really matter what jewelry I wear at 62? I'll say this, it matters if you decide it does. Because statement jewelry over 60 isn't about trends, it's about telling the truth without saying a word. And the truth is, every single piece I wore meant something. They weren't decorations, they were declarations. Now, outfitted, styled, and scented, I was ready. But what came next surprised even me. Not just how I looked, but how I moved, how I smiled, how I carried myself like a woman reborn. Next, let me show you how the way I walked into that room that night changed everything, even before I said a word. Before anyone noticed the dress, before they saw the hair, they noticed the walk. Not because it was dramatic, I wasn't strutting like a model, but there was something different, something in the way I held my head, the calm in my shoulders, the ease in my step. For the first time in decades, I walked into a room without asking for permission to take up space. That's the thing no one tells you about confidence after 60. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it glows, quietly, from within. I wasn't trying to be the center of attention, but when I walked through the door of that little wine bar where my closest friends waited, there was a moment of stillness. Someone gasped softly, another smiled, and someone whispered, "You look radiant." But it wasn't the look, it was the energy. That night, I wasn't performing. I wasn't chasing youth or trying to prove anything. I simply allowed myself to exist, fully, unapologetically, in the version of womanhood I had grown into. And that changed everything, because the way we carry ourselves says more than any trend ever could. The tilt of the chin, the softness in the eyes, the ease of a genuine laugh. These are the details that style magazines can't teach, but life does. For women over 60, true style isn't just about fashion, it's about embodiment. Wearing your years with pride, wearing your choices with peace, wearing your freedom like a second skin. And the more I leaned into that truth, the more magnetic the evening became. It wasn't about being noticed, it was about being seen. And once that shift happened in me, something else began to change. People started responding differently, even those I least expected, especially one person whose reaction said more than words ever could. Next, I'll share the surprising responses from my friends, my kids, and yes, even my ex-husband, and what they revealed about how far I'd come. I didn't throw the party for anyone else, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. How would they react? Would they think it was silly? Over the top? Or worse, would they pity me? But as the night unfolded, something unexpected happened. There was no pity, no awkward silence, just warmth and real, unfiltered admiration. My closest friends, many of whom had known me through the hardest years, looked at me with something close to wonder. "You look like you again," one of them said, her voice cracking just slightly. Another whispered, "I wish I had your courage." Even my daughter, who had been quietly reserved about the whole idea, pulled me aside halfway through the evening. She touched the sleeve of my dress and said, "You look strong." "I'm proud of you, Mom." That alone would have been enough. But then, unexpectedly, my ex-husband showed up. Yes, I had invited him. Not out of spite or drama, but because we had shared a life, and I wasn't going to make my new beginning about bitterness. He arrived near the end, stayed for 20 minutes, and said very little. But before he left, he looked at me, not like a man who'd lost something, not like someone trying to win me back. He looked at me with quiet respect, and he said simply, "You've never looked more sure of yourself." That was the moment I realized this party wasn't about endings. It was about how transformation, at any age, changes how the world responds to you. When you start honoring your own voice, others begin to do the same. And honestly, that's what I want every woman over 60 to feel. Not just noticed, but recognized. Not just stylish, but seen. But this story isn't over yet, because beyond the hair and heels and heartfelt conversations, something even more powerful happened that night. I felt a deeper message rising up inside me, something I wanted every woman watching to hear. Next, I want to share a message for any woman standing at the edge of change, unsure, scared, or simply wondering, what now? If you're watching this and feeling that quiet ache, the one that says something's ending or something needs to change, I want you to know something. You're not too old, you're not too late, you're right on time. We're told that reinvention is for the young, that new chapters are reserved for women with smooth skin, flat stomachs, and fresh starts. But here's the truth, they don't say out loud. The most powerful transformations often happen after 60. Because by this point, you've seen enough, you've given enough, you've sacrificed enough. And now is the time to become who you were always meant to be. Not the version your marriage needed, not the version your children depended on, not the version society deemed appropriate, but you, the real you, the woman who still dreams, still desires, still deserves. It doesn't have to start with a party. Maybe it starts with a walk, a haircut, a new pair of earrings, a dress in a color you've never dared to wear. Maybe it starts with letting go of what no longer fits, not just in your closet, but in your life. If you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, who am I now? Let me tell you, you're someone worth celebrating, and you don't need anyone's permission to begin again. Because fashion over 60 isn't about following trends, it's about telling your truth. And life after divorce or retirement or any change isn't a decline, it's a doorway. All you have to do is walk through it. And when you do, wear something that reminds you of who you are. Because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you put on, one piece at a time. So if you're still with me, thank you. This story was mine. But maybe, in some way, it's also yours. Now let's bring it all together, with one final thought that I hope stays with you long after this video ends. When I look back at that night now, the dress, the laughter, the soft music, the flicker of candles reflected in wine glasses, I don't remember it as a divorce party. I remember it as a declaration, a quiet, beautiful moment where I said to the world and to myself, I'm still here, and I'm just getting started. This video wasn't just about what I wore, it was about why I wore it. It was about using fashion not to impress, but to reclaim. It was about stepping into my 60s not as an afterthought, but as a woman in her prime. Because here's the secret, style over 60 isn't about dressing younger. It's about dressing truer. Truer to the woman who's learned from heartbreak. Truer to the body that's carried you through joy and pain. Truer to the soul that no longer needs approval to shine. And if you've been through something, divorce, loss, change, you know this truth already. There is no expiration date on transformation. Reinventing yourself after divorce isn't about proving anything. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to be quiet. So whether you're watching this in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, whether you're in the middle of a breakup or just trying to feel alive again, know this, you can still wear bold colors. You can still cut your hair. You can still walk into any room and make it yours. You can still start over and look damn good doing it. If this video sparked something in you, don't let it fade. Stay with me. There's more where this came from. Style tips, hair ideas, confidence boosters, all tailored for empowered women over 50 who are ready to live unapologetically. So subscribe, share this with a friend, or simply leave a comment below. This is my time. Because it is. And you're not too old, you're not too late, you're right on time.